With today's guest, we got Dan Davis. Dan, how are we?
Not too bad, James. How are you?
Really good. First and foremost, thanks for coming on the show.
Not at all.
Book offer, but the book that we'll plug straight away that you wrote, In Plain Sight, The Life and Lies of Jimmy Savile. For me, one of the most evil men in the UK who was never convicted.
Jimmy Savile, once celebrated as a national treasure in Britain, rose to fame as a quirky TV personality and philanthropist, hosting iconic shows like Top of the Pops and Jim'll Fix It.
Untouchable, possibly, with his people he rubbed shoulders with. But people are still fascinated with this stuff, and this man, for some reason, never charged. Apparently 500 victims, majority under 18, like... You lived it firsthand with the guy for a few years to kind of understand him, and it's listen, powerful book. Like I says earlier, I read snippets just to get an understanding of it myself. I don't know anyone. I know Louis Theroux kind of done the documentary, and yourself, who were with the man. But how are you?
I'm all right. Yeah, I'm not too bad. I mean, it feels like a long time ago, but it also feels quite present.
Yeah,
you know, the BBC drama that's based on the book, The Reckoning, came out last October, and that sort of stirred a lot of still waters. You know, it's like, I think having been in this story and agonised over it for a long time and not got to the truth while he was alive, because he did evade the truth, or he did evade capture very successfully for more than 84 years. So yeah, it was, you know, when the TV drama came out and the build up to that, it sort of, as I said, it stirred some still waters, and it sort of made me think about a time in my life which I'd sort of try to put behind me, to be honest with you.
Is he right? When it comes to women, you've got a short attention span?
No, women know too much. I'm all for girls that don't know too much. It's a different class, you see. When you are single, it's because of some reason that you like being single. Jesus didn't find any problem with it. I don't find any problem with it. A lot of the time, people say, what? You're still single? You never got married? Why didn't you get married? The answer is, I haven't the faintest idea.
Yeah, but it's difficult because of that name and the no charges and the reputation that he had. And by the looks of it, he fooled so many people. And people have got to understand, not everyone who was photoed with Jimmy Savile or with Jimmy Savile are hard in the same brush as him, because he seemed very cunning, very narcissistic, and very capable of manipulation anyone. So it's it'll be an interesting podcast. But first and foremost, where can people buy the book?
Well, you can get it on Amazon. It's the most good bookshops. You know, it's still out there. It's still selling. You know, it's a book I'm very proud of. It took me a long time to write. I was interviewing him for...
He was widely admired for his eccentric persona and charitable efforts, raising millions for hospitals and earning a knighthood from Queen Elizabeth II. However, behind the scenes, Savile was one of the most prolific predators in modern history, sexually abusing hundreds of victims over 6 decades, including children, teenagers, and even vulnerable patients in hospitals. His fame and connections gave him unparalleled access to institutions, and he used his power to manipulate and silence his victims. Despite persistent rumors and occasional complaints, his public image as a benevolent figure shielded him from scrutiny, and systemic failures within the police, media, and the BBC allowed him to evade justice.
A number of years, I think 6 years in total, maybe more than 6 years, from in his late life up until probably about just under a year before he died. And in that time, you know, I really agonized over what this story was, you know. I mean, I was not obsessed by Jimmy Savile, but I was very interested in him from a very early age, because, you know, I went to see Jim'll Fix It being filmed when I was 9 years old with my best mate. My mum took me and my best mate to Shepherd's Bush TV Theatre, and we were sitting in the audience. We never met him. And, you know, I was staying with that best mate last night, actually, and we talk about it. We have talked about it quite a lot, because we both came away from that episode feeling like, God, there was something really cold and remote and odd about him. And at that time, you know, 1980, he was one of the biggest celebrities in Britain, and he was seen as, you know, almost like a Santa Claus to the nation with Jim'll Fix It. and programs like that. And his fame was huge, and he was a huge charity fundraiser. But there was just, and I don't know whether it was, what I describe as the sort of unvarnished reality of TV, which as a kid you're seeing lots of adults running around with clipboards and, headphones on, and you're looking through the TV cameras, there's wires everywhere, and it's not what you see when you're a kid sitting on the sofa watching the TV show. But something really sort of shone out, or was quite visceral, if you like, from that experience, and that was the fact that he was very cold and remote.
It wasn't until after his death in 2011 that the horrifying truth came to light through an ITV documentary which spurred Operation Yewtree, an investigation that confirmed the staggering extent of his crimes. Savile's story serves as a chilling reminder of how unchecked power and societal complicity can enable abuse, highlighting the urgent need to believe survivors, demand accountability, and ensure that such horrors are never repeated.
And there was some real oddness about him, and that started the journey. It wasn't like I went off and started obsessing about Jimmy Savile straight away, but that was definitely the seed.
I think back then, though, when people were famous, they were famous, and it doesn't matter who you are, even though you'd have probably felt that kind of weird energy, the coldness, like you say, because they're famous, we put these people on pedestals where you kind of bypass everything that you're feeling and kind of just see them as, I wouldn't say gods, but idols, no matter who it is or their backstory, even though a lot of people didn't know his backstory then, but I believe obviously the 50s he was kind of getting exposed. But yeah, a weird character, but again, Netflix documentaries, more books, he will always be spoke about, I believe, because there'll never ever be any answers to it now, so it's a lot of it's speculation, a lot of it is hearsay, and a lot of it is people's opinions, but it's just so much dirt against the guy, and it, like I say, we'll get into all that, how he managed to work his way around it all without ever getting convicted. But before we get into everything though, Dan, I always like to go back to the start with my guests, get more of a bit of an understanding about you, where you grew up and how it all began.
Well, I grew up in London, one of 4 kids, quite young parents, went to school in London, wanted to be a sort of sportsman, I think, was never quite good enough, but loved sport, and my first job in journalism was writing about sport.
What sport?
Golf to start with. I love golf, and I wrote to a load of sports magazines when I left school, football, golf, all the sort of sports I loved really, and was lucky enough that somebody gave me a chance, and that was the start of my journalism career. And then did that for a year before going to university at Liverpool, and then did football fanzines and freelance for people during university, and then went back to the golf magazine during my sort of holidays from universities rather, and that was it. And then worked on football magazines during the 90s, and then in sort of men's magazines during the 2000s, and was sort of in and around that sort of Loaded era when I was on the football magazine. So Loaded was all starting up at IPC magazines in London, so it was an exciting time.
I could understand the reticence if we were asking for names, but we're not.
No.
It's simply a principle.
Not now, but after this TV show, all the tabloids come on and said, right, we'll have a few names now then,
well,
Jim.
they've been doing that. They've been doing that for years anyway. But don't you find that because of this relationship with your mother, because of this relationship with your mother, it has overpowered relationships that you might have had with other women?
No, if I took a girl home while she was there, she'd sling them out if I went to the loo. She'd do that, but not because she had anything going for me as a son, but she didn't want anybody nicking her life of luxury off her, so she'd kick him out the door a bit lively.
So she was possessive.
I'm sure a lot of mothers will do with sons.
So she was a possessive mother.
No, get him.
She was possessive?
No, not really. Not really.
But she was frightened of losing you?
No, she was a survivor.
But she was frightened of losing you?
Yeah, no. What she didn't want was for me to walk in and say, hey, you know that girl I brought in last week? Yeah, well, she's going to move in here and you're going to move out. Ooh, she didn't want any of that. Out. Get out. Little vixen.
He was a hugely complex, damaged, poisonous person. But he also, in amongst that, there were other sides of him that people warmed to, and I think that at the very beginning we were talking about, the impact he's had on other people's lives. There's lots of people that would have taken part in fundraising or charity work, or who thought they were really doing great things, and actually working with Jimmy Savile to raise money for, let's say, at Stoke Mandeville, or raise money for lifeboats, or whatever it might have been that they were doing. That might have been the most exciting thing in their life, and that might have been the greatest times in their life. And I think there's a real sort of collateral damage for so many people, not just his victims, but those people who now have to view that time in their lives through a totally different lens.
It's mad he died with his fingers crossed, because the man who was a devil worshipper, before he died, he started saying, "Oh no, what have I done?"
Really?
So whether people believe in that or not, there's definitely something out there. If you ain't doing pretty good in life, if you're an evil bastard, then you're going somewhere else. Yeah, I don't know where it is. I don't know.
Yeah, I think he knew that. I mean, if he was, a true Catholic, and as I said, I'm not sure how perfectly he practiced. I think he must have known that he wasn't going to heaven.
Mm-hmm. How are you feeling today?
I'm all right. I don't know how I'm going to feel in about half an hour after talking about that, but I've enjoyed talking to you.
Listen, great conversation. A very dark subject for a lot of people, but it's a subject that must be spoke about too. It's a very popular topic, no matter what people think of it. A very dangerous man, but also people doted on this man, loved this man, especially with all the charade that he put on and the acting. He know how to work the crowd. So yeah, and there's people genuinely believe he was set up, and people believe he was innocent. Listen, by all means, be who you want to be and think how you want to think. The guy was never charged, so it's understandable as well, but you just look at him and you just think, nah, he's a dirty bastard. But again, listen, I could be wrong, especially with information that you have, other people have. Something just doesn't add up. Again, will we ever know? I don't know. But listen, for coming on today and telling your story and writing this book, unbelievable. Like I say, I think you're a great writer. I can't say what you do for the future. Keep going. Would you like to finish up on anything else, Dan?
No, that's good, mate. Thanks for your time.